Hi, it's author Ellie Alexander, and I am so happy to be chatting books with you. This week on My Favorite Reads, I'm sharing 5 of my favorite nonfiction titles that have inspired my writing. So stay tuned. Thanks so much for joining me. Before we get started, be sure to subscribe to my channel and click the bell to get notified whenever I upload new videos. Are you a nonfiction reader, or do you primarily stick with fiction? I enjoy both, especially informative narrative nonfiction. I tend to read fiction and nonfiction simultaneously. I like that dance back and forth. And if you are a nonfiction reader, I hope that some of the books I'm going to talk about today will change your mind. I think that sometimes there's this idea that nonfiction is dry and boring. Not true. It can be equally compelling and take a deep dive into subjects that fiction only has time to gloss over. The other thing is, readers always ask me what I'm reading, and I know I've said this a million times before, but when I'm working on a new manuscript, I tend not to read mysteries. I think it's too hard to get caught up in someone else's plot when I'm plotting myself, so I often turn to nonfiction reads, and these specific books are titles that have in some way influenced and inspired my writing. Okay, so let's get to it. Number 1, A Homemade Life by Molly Wizenberg. Are you craving some comfort right now? Then this is the book for you. I read A Homemade Life many years before I wrote Meet Your Baker. And when I think of Jules and her approach to handcrafting everything she bakes with love, I know that Molly's memoir about her life and her connections in the kitchen definitely influenced Jules. Of course, there is no killer lurking around the corner or a list of suspects lingering around the dinner table. A Homemade Life is a beautiful read, whether you're a foodie or not. Molly's prose and her memories of how food helped shape her resonate on every level for me. And do not even get me started on the recipes. This book is packed with drool-worthy recipes for meatballs with pine nuts and cilantro and golden raisins, vanilla bean butter cake with glazed oranges and creme fraiche. Are you hungry yet? You will be after you read this, trust me. Number 2, Beatrice Potter's Gardening Life by Marta McDowell. Molly's book was a sensory kitchen delight, and Marta's biography on Beatrice Potter is the gardening equivalent. It might not have recipes, but it has beautiful pictures of Potter's lush gardens, her sketches, and her early writings. Did you love Beatrice Potter growing up? I certainly did, and this book gave me such a new appreciation for her work and her artistic life. It also makes me want to get outside and start digging in the dirt. The writer in me appreciates that Marta took the lens of examining Beatrice's gardens. It's so very clear that her connection to nature inspired her work. And I love that that still holds true today. What are those little nuggets that inspire us as writers, whether it's a family recipe or a blossoming lilac? When I'm speaking to new writers, I always encourage them to find trinkets of inspiration for their desk. And after reading this book, I think I might need to change those trinkets to a full countryside garden. Number 3, A History of the World in 6 Glasses by Tom Standage. I think I may have mentioned once or twice that I'm a history fan. So when I saw this title, I was sold. I didn't even have to read the back cover. Since I write about food and beer in my mysteries, this book seemed like the perfect match for enjoyment and for a touch of research. I was not wrong about that. The history of beer and wine and coffee and tea, all of it. This gem is chock full of interesting facts about the drinks we find in our glasses and how they relate to humanity and how they've changed our culture. Plus, it is a great excuse to fill your cup with a strong espresso or an earthy red wine and curl up on the couch. Number 4, I'm a Stranger Here Myself by Bill Bryson. Speaking of your favorite drink, Bill Bryson is the writer I want at my dinner party. I mean, I feel like if Bill and I sat down for a pint, we would be besties. No? A girl can dream, right? I think that Bill Bryson is one of the greatest nonfiction writers of our time. He can make the most mundane topics come to life. I don't think there is a single title of his that I have not thoroughly devoured. One of the things that I enjoyed most about I'm a Stranger Here Myself is his perspective of returning to America after living in Britain for 20 years. This is another book that I read many years before I started writing fiction, and I think some of my inspiration for using Ashland as a setting is that blending of America with touches of a European city. Ashland has such deep connections to Shakespeare, and yet we're firmly rooted in our US traditions. Bill is able to capture so many nuances of straddling two worlds and two cultures in this book, and it is wickedly funny, like snort water up your nose funny. So if you need a history and some laugh, this is the book for you. Number 5, last but not least, Willa, The Life of Willa Cather by Phyllis C. Robinson. Willa Cather is one of my favorite all-time writers. I fell in love with O Pioneers and My Antonia when I was in high school. My grandparents were originally from Nebraska. In fact, this is a true story. Later in life, after they had moved out west and raised their family, my grandmother won a radio contest that included a free trip to Hawaii. She asked if there was any way she could change the ticket from Hawaii to Nebraska. I am sure that is not a request that the station expected to receive. Willa Cather wrote sweeping epics about America that connected me to my understanding of my grandparents and past, and yet her vision of American life was so vastly different than anything I experienced growing up. I think that's one of the reasons her writing was so influential for me at a time in my life when I was starting to make the switch from reading as pure enjoyment to wanting to study the craft and break it apart. I love biographies in general, and especially if they're about writers or other people who I admire. And one of the things I found so fascinating in this book is how vastly different the bulk of Willa's life was from what she wrote about. She lived in New York and was a magazine editor? What? Shouldn't she have been off harvesting wheat on the prairie somewhere? That, for me, is why reading nonfiction is so fascinating. I get to gain a completely new understanding of a writer I adore. Those are my 5 favorite nonfiction reads. Have you read any of these? Are there other nonfiction books that have left a lasting impression on you? Be sure to share them in the comments below. And as always, I would love it if you'd subscribe to my channel and click the bell to get notified whenever I share new videos. Happy reading!